Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the I Alpha Project. This is part two of Chewy Tales. I shared three stories of my journey. In the first part, I've got two more to go. And the one story I want to start off with is about a time after training that I was in the sauna. And I had finished training, I was in the sauna, and I usually take my post workout meal and have it in the sauna with some water. And I was injecting myself, and there was a man in there who looked over at me and asked, what's the tube for? And I explained the whole thing to him. And his response to the whole thing was, oh, no wonder you look the way you look. That's a good compliment, but at the same time, completely diminished all the work that I've put into the knowledge and the training and the spiritual and mental capacity needed to deal with my situation. So that all went, and pretty much he just said, oh, so you look as good as you do because you have the tube. And that didn't sit very well with me. And the reason it didn't sit very well with me is because a part of it was true, because a part of it was true. I mean, he's absolutely right. If it wasn't for the tube, I would not have had the knowledge that I had or the discipline I had or the drive that I had to get myself better. But it kind of stung a little bit because I just thought you've completely negated all the work that you have to do. And you've pretty much just said that I look the way I look because I have a tube. My response to that was actually, yeah, no, absolutely. You're right. I'm very blessed to have this tube because if it wasn't for the tube, I could probably go to McDonald's and be eating a whole bunch of shit and look like you. Needless to say, we kind of laughed it off a little bit. But I think that's the one thing that I've faced in this journey of mine is that there are the people that are empathetic, and there are also those that look at my situation, kind of excuse their own habits based on my situation. So the reality is, people that are peg fed, there's really no difference between us and everybody else when it comes to just that side of our lifestyle. The only difference is I tell people our esophagus is outside of our bodies. Other than that, we have exactly the same cravings. I do get thirsty. I do get hungry. The one thing I do miss the most isn't necessarily swallowing and eating food. It's drinking. I miss drinking water. I miss, especially in summer in heavy training sessions, having that cold feeling of something going down your throat. I used to love pretty much any fruit juice, but mostly orange and apple juice with heaps of ice. So that's the one thing I do miss on hot days, more so than actually eating. But when I do eat and inject, I feel fulfilled, the same as most people would. And I do get hungry and I do get thirsty. For those that don't know, like being peg fed, if I inject myself when I'm hungry and I'm not chewing, it does take a little bit of time for my body to register that my stomach is eating, I guess, or there's something in my stomach that it's processing. So the hunger pains don't necessarily go away straight away. If my stomach's empty, I can actually feel the food being injected into the stomach, and it is quite soothing for me. But other than that, the one good thing about having a peg feed is that it takes away from all the stuff that we complain about when it comes to eating things orally, like texture, taste. So keeping a healthy lifestyle becomes quite easy when you're being peg fed. The simple fact that we don't have that many options, we may as well just go the better, viable, healthier option. One of the best things that's come with owning a pig feed is the discipline in being prepared. So no matter what my day looks like or my weekend looks like, if I go away, whatever the case is, I have to be prepared. And navigating that line has also been a little bit of a challenge because sometimes there's such a thing as being over-prepared. The only thing about people say there's no such thing as being over-prepared, but for me, I'm coming in the process or the dynamic of the mental capacity needed to be prepared. So there is a lot of stress that comes when you have to prepare yourself for a night out or a week away. And sometimes if we overcomplicate things, we tend to put ourselves in a hole, like we think that there is no other alternatives. But if we've prepped meals, there are a lot of options now that you can go away and find blended meals, yogurt, smoothies, things like that at shops that if you do get stuck, you can inject. You can be spontaneous even if you have a peg feed. You just have to make sure you've got the basics and fundamentals in place, like having a handheld blender with you, having a spare syringe and a tube in the car, once those things are done, there is always ways to navigate around that. So it does come with a sense of freedom at the same time, but being prepared and disciplined in that preparation has definitely helped in other aspects of my life, such as my training and my kids, things like that. So that's definitely a bonus in that. The last story I wanted to share with you is an interesting one. When I ran my remedial center and started working at a gym, and we are self-employed pretty much at the gym. We are contractors, so all the trainers pretty much work for themselves. And along the process, there was this one trainer that actually approached a couple of people looking for work, and a lot of them had actually heard me by reputation. His response to them was, why would you work with somebody who doesn't eat? Why would you have a trainer work on your nutrition or work on your lifestyle when they themselves eat through a pig feed? This actually stung quite badly because I've never really had my what you should call my disability used against me in that format. It was quite challenging to process, and upon reflection, I learned something that it was actually not about me. And that was the trigger, is that they were using me to make themselves look better. Now, my argument, once I pulled him aside and had a conversation with him, and I did say to him, I said, look, I'm not quite sure as to what your intentions were with regards to that. But it could be argued that someone like me actually has a better fundamental understanding of nutrition. Not only have I studied it, but the fact that I've lived through this and that I am living proof of what can be done with someone in my condition with the feeding tube has its own merit. The reality is the biggest thing that I've learned about nutrition isn't necessarily what we put into our bodies, but it's how our body processes the stuff we put into it. And I've mentioned this in other podcasts regarding blood type diets and things like that. But using my condition against me in order to limit my business or my reputation was definitely something that I wasn't used to. But it also highlighted that I was becoming enough of a threat to the general gang with regards to my performance as a trainer. And I think that is the one limiting belief that people have when it comes to us with peg tubes. Of course, some people have peg tubes because there are other conditions and other factors, and that's a consequence. But all in all, just purely because someone is peg fed does not make them different. In fact, you could argue that it makes us more special. It's like our own little superpower, one that I'm sure many people wish they had had, in the sense that we can get the right things in when we need to. Our body will process those a lot better than if we were eating junk food or fast food because we have to go and grab a takeout because we weren't prepared when we left the house. Being peg fed does kind of put us into that lane of health and wellness. And for me personally, it was a definitive choice that I made, that I wanted to make sure that I was going to make this work for me, not the other way around. So the same thing goes with my competing in bodybuilding and fitness. It's one of those things like these guys have to be on a diet, a strict diet, and I'm on a strict diet 24/7. So for me, there's never a day that I'm not on diet. By that, it means like diet incorporates the prep work, incorporates the flexibility of understanding what your day looks like and what your week looks like, and to make that fit in congruency, like learning to flow with the wave, I guess. Well, guys, with those two stories that I told you, there comes a bit of a challenging aspect. The first one was that my condition was a big part in getting me to where I am today. I would have to argue that that person was right in the sauna. If someone said to me, Pedro, tomorrow I'll flick my fingers and your tube is gone and there is absolutely nothing wrong with you, you can go ahead and eat whatever you would like, but all the lessons that you've learned with your tube go along with it, I would choose to keep my tube. Now, it's important to remember, guys, as well, that I don't identify myself as the guy who eats through a peg feed. The older I get, the more comfortable I am about sharing my journey. But at the same time, I was always very aware of the fact that if I spend too much time talking about my tube, it would then become something that I did identify myself as. It's not who I am, it's just a part of who I am. And I think these stories that I've shared with you, it serves to highlight that. The best advice I can give to any family or any person with a peg feet is take ownership of it as part of who you are, but do not identify yourself as that's who I am and I'm nobody without this tube. And my tube is what I use to get attention. It's what I use to get validation. It's what I use to get empathy. It's not at all. It's the tool that I use to develop myself. It's there to make me more self-aware. And one thing I've also learned is having a tube is when I do get the cravings are like anybody else, but it's also helped me with my clients because if my clients crave junk food, it's just the brain telling them the junk food. The stomach is craving carbohydrates or some sort of nutrition, and the brain in the interpretation thinks of something that is the closest relationship to that you would probably want to go and get. For me, I literally crave when I'm dieting. I love oats, peanut butter, honey. I know mixing carbs and fats, but I'll put all that together, the mash shake, and blend it up. And I actually crave that to inject, not to taste, but to inject it. I look forward to that feeling. So I think that's the same thing as a hunger thing. It's kind of changed for me a little bit, but that's just another sign of how when you develop the relationship with your condition and you make it work for you, you can understand your body a lot better and then give it what it needs. I hope that makes a little bit of sense, guys. The most important thing to remember is do not identify yourself as the person with the tube. You are way more than that. And your potential is only limited by your belief in yourself. So put that shit aside and just keep moving forward. And most importantly, take ownership and love every little bit of your journey as much as you possibly can. There's always good things that come out of challenges, just like the lotus flower coming out of a swamp. Well, guys, I'll leave it there. I hope these two stories helped. Catch you on the next episode.